I'll have you know, it's rather hot in this flannel right now, but in attempting to make my vids look the same next to each other, I'm trying to wear it for as long as humanly possible. Hopefully, it makes the thumbnail. Anyway, here we go. Okay, so we will show Amy as a child, likely meeting her lifelong friends. I don't know when exactly she met them, but whenever that was, let's depict it. We can show her singing a little bit as a child, right? We're going to have to get a young child because I'm thinking 9, 10, 11, 12 for that, her as a young child. And we're going to have to get another young actress as a teen because Amy did, in fact, work with, I'm probably getting the title wrong, the Youth London Symphony Orchestra or something of that nature, where there are real recordings of her having worked with them. So we can just kind of show her, building her skills as a singer. And I want to do some pretty important scenes of her talking with her friends about like what they want to be when they grow up, and then we can establish that not only does Amy, want to be a jazz singer or she wants to be a singer or whatever, she also wants to do this, that, and the third, or what have you. I would really like to depict a lot of her just spending time with her father and probably spending time with her grandma, but just so we can have that established. And then, once she's like 16, 17, because the recording I heard on the documentary, Amy, that was from when she was 16. Okay, so she's already getting attention for her voice at that age, so we can show her getting more attention, within her realm, whatever it was, within her, just community. We can show her getting attention, kind of getting to be more known, people recognizing her, knowing who she is just because of her voice. Knowing she's talented. Obviously, this girl knew she was talented. Okay, from day fucking one, she knew she was talented. So let's establish that even when she's a teen. Anyway, so we can also do just a little bit of world building with showing her with her friends, like showing her drinking, showing her with men, that kind of thing. Just normal, of that era, like girls going out kind of thing. So then, but we're almost at the first act. We're almost at the end of Act 1 by now. So her thinking about and being interested in a record deal is like right before the end of Act 1, which is she gets a record deal. So end of Act 1, she's getting a record deal, gaining more fame, getting to know her producers, getting to know who she's working with at the record label and that kind of thing. So then for Act 2, we do a lot of her making the record, recording, a lot of her working. I know for a fact that Amy knew what she was doing, and the fact that she worked in, had experience with a whole symphony orchestra, like she knows what she's doing, right? So we can show her calling shots, at 18, 19, 20, 21, like being like, yep, you gotta do this, you gotta do that, you gotta do the other thing. I would also really like to establish very clear relationships of her with her bandmates, right? Because they were important to her and they had significant relationships together and she cared about them and they toured with her, etc. Anyway, so we want to depict that. And then so that would be the whole, and also her, but at the same time, we want to show her doing a lot of drugs, doing a lot of alcoholic stuff. I really don't want to glamorize it. Let's do our best not to do that. Anyway, so the fun and games of Act 2 would be hotels, touring, drinking, and her success. So we got all that fun stuff happening. There can be a lot of really cool visual stuff done with hotels. I love hotels. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 star. There aren't 6-star hotels. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-star hotels. I love them. I've stayed in all of them. There's actually a really cool picture. I don't remember which album exactly, but in the insert booklet in the CD, because I had it on CD, there's a picture of her at a hotel. She's in the hallway, actually. She's like right in front of a door. So there are just so many cool things you can do stylistically with all these amazing hotels that she's gonna stay at. So that'd be really fun. That's something cool, and I would also, like to reference that moment, just that moment of her getting her, because it looks really normal. It doesn't look like that was a professional photo, but that was in fact in her album booklet. Anyway, okay, so that's the fun and games of the movie. We're almost at the midpoint of Act 2, and the midpoint of Act 2 can be like her second album release. It can be the one titled Amy Winehouse, which is really good and really great, right? And she's really happy about it. She's excited about it. But simultaneously, we can show her difficulties with it and all the really unnecessary and backlash and vitriol. I want to emphasize the fact that I would really like for this biopic to be a love letter to a lot of things, mainly this era in which Amy was so famous and was so loved and known, which was, Audi's, okay? Rehab that song was really popular in, I want to say, 2007, 2008. We're a little behind here in the States, okay? So it might have been as early as 2006, 2007 in England. But, we want to just establish that success, but at the same time, kind of show the reality of that whole situation is really closing in on her. She's got a lot of really tough critics. They're what I was getting at with the whole love letter to the Audis is this was the era of celebrity gossip sites. Okay, this was the very moment before we had smartphones. Was that people were still actually looking at websites, and these celebrity gossip ones were real hot, and that also increased a lot of the negative feedback that Amy got. And we can also show the paparazzi getting on her case, and we can also show her drug use getting worse, just from that responding to the public's response of her work, right? Okay, so that's the very midpoint. And another thing I really, really badly wanted to pick is if I looked into it, I could figure it out. But there's this attempt at a radio interview with Amy in the documentary called Amy, where this radio host is wanting to talk to her, and they say hi or whatever, and she immediately brings up the fact that I don't know if it was her production company or who did this, but someone messed up her song. Someone added stuff to her song that she didn't want in there. And she just immediately mentioned that. She's like, they did stuff to my song I didn't ask them to do, I didn't want them to do, I didn't say they could do that. And the dumbass radio host, hi bro, you're a dumbass. He just immediately shuts down the interview, and he's like, oh, well, I guess this interview's over. Amy broke the rules. Okay. That was a fact that needs to be established, is that she did in fact break the rules, in such cool ways, in such astronomical ways. And that's also heartbreaking. How dare anyone mess with her songs, her music in general, when she knows what she's doing and she knows exactly how she wants it to sound. How dare anyone do that? But that kind of thing is going to happen to you when you're a vulnerable person. You're a singular person. Obviously she had a band, but she was the focus of her own act, right? Anyway, so we're on, this is the second half of Act 2. Okay, so we can show her performing badly, because that did happen. We can show her friends and her family, and probably even her agent and whoever the heck works at her record company that she's signed with, that they're getting concerned. They're telling her that they're concerned about her, and she probably, doesn't listen. So also I want to emphasize the fact that, these record companies really do, or whoever the fuck PR team, whatever, they try to make you into someone that you are not, and that is what was going on. And obviously a way that she coped with that was by drinking and doing drugs. But anyway, so she got booed off stage. She got booed off stage at this really big music festival. I think she just didn't want to go. They finally got her there like over an hour late, and I think she just didn't want to perform, and she got booed off. Like, tough, but it did in fact happen. So now we're almost at the point of no return, or the dark night of the soul, right? So at that point where she's gotten booed off stage, she's having her drug problems, maybe she goes to the doctor and the doctor says, like, this is serious, like you're playing with fire here, like you need to scale it back. At that point, so at dark night of the soul, she is like, I'm gonna go to rehab. Okay, so then that is actually part of Act 3, is she goes to rehab. And we could do some cool scenes of her in rehab. Obviously they would very likely be fabricated, or not necessarily entirely factual, but they can be based on fact. She was in rehab with other people, and she did actually get better for a time there. Okay, she was doing better, and as I understand it, she apologized to her friends, and she was kind of really finally catching on, like, I'm in control here. I'm gonna try to have say in what I do, right? So then she'll be released from rehab, but unfortunately, so she'll be doing okay for a little bit there. Something I just read was the fact that her record company thought that the bad press she was getting was actually benefiting her record sales. So she could be, and I don't know if this timeline is exactly correct, but I feel like it's close enough and also believable, that she could have been having gotten better, having stopped doing so much drugs and alcohol, right? And then, found out that her record company just wants press, and she's like, fuck. So she goes right back to drugs. Okay. And then we can have her perform messed up again, unfortunately, because that did in fact happen. But it got so bad. Like, it was so bad and so awful and so criminal that anyone was allowing her to perform in the state she was in. And y'all can go watch it on YouTube. And I know this isn't really like a feel-good movie, right? This isn't like a happy, like, let's ride off into the sunset ending, okay? But was Amy's life like that? Do we need to be depicting these like ultra sugary, like, run-of-the-mill movies anymore? I think not. Okay, so but she's still living life. She's still trying to do her thing. She's unhealthy, but so we can actually show her talking to her doctor, who she saw like 24 hours before she died, and her doctor said she was fine. She also performed, or attempted to perform, 3 days before she died. We should also show her, I think it would also be good to show her last known interaction on camera with her father, because it wasn't exactly good. Anyway, then close to the very end, we're almost at the end of Act 3 now, we can show her relationship with her security guard. and we can show the fact that we could have done this, in the entire movie beforehand, right? That, they have a good relationship, her security guard's cool, da da da. And then we can actually have her security guard finding her because he's the first person who found out that she had passed. And then we can show her funeral. There is real footage of her funeral that anyone can watch. So that can be kind of reiterated, right? And then what I'd really like to do is, I think that her security guard had an interesting last interaction with her. So I think it would be good to, show part of their last interaction together, but then have her actual security guard at her funeral reiterating something she said to him at her funeral. Okay? And then they can I think it would actually be really beautiful to show like lowering her into her grave, right? And then, okay, so this whole time we've had an actress portraying Amy, right? But at the very, very, very end, we can show the coffin being lowered, right? At the very end, we can show real footage of Amy. I know there's a clip out there of her talking about her life, of her saying something inspiring, of her just being herself. So I think it's really important to show that too. And then we can roll credits. Okay. I almost made it to 15 minutes. So close. But what I want to say about this movie is that what I really want to depict is like, I really do want it to be, I want it to be a love letter to three things. I want it to be a love letter to London. I want it to be a love letter to the Aughties, the era in which she was most famous. And I want it to be a love letter to her, to Amy. I want it to be showcasing her success in a way that is respectful, in a way that is loving, and in a way that is real, right? Because fame has a lot of consequences, so I would like to depict that. Something that would be really cool about doing, like, purposely throwing in a lot of Audie's fashion would be like, what I want from this movie is I want the young folk, okay, and by young folk I mean anyone 25 and younger, to watch this movie and be like, have their minds blown by like celebrity websites that people actually got on their computers and looked at, magazines, tabloids, that kind of thing, all the like physical fashion. I want them to be like, wow, I wish I could have lived in that era, I wish I could have been around when Amy was so popular. Like, that's what I want to depict. Okay. So this last thing that I really want to say here is, I know this is a little bit out of the box and it's a little bit unconventional, but I think it would be really, really good if the producers or the studio or whoever the heck, maybe it should be an English one. Isn't A24 American? Or Focus Features is American, so maybe it should really be an English one. Anyway, it should be English folk. I'll go with, and then hang out and say hi and explain. Okay, what I want to happen is I want the producers of this biopic, this Amy biopic, to go to her neighborhood, to go to where she lived physically. I want them to ask anyone who's lived there a long time if they happen to have pictures of Amy, if they happen to have stories about Amy, or ask them to possibly contribute to the budget of the movie. And I'm serious about that, and it wouldn't even have to be a lot of money. They could donate £1, but that would mean that they would get their name in the credits, donors for the budget, donors for the movie. And that would just be really important because, like, this is about her. This is about the actual person that really lived. And if you got her former community involved in making this movie, it would make it so much more heartfelt. And I think that there would be a lot of healing done. Sorry. I just can't believe you would make a fucking movie like that. Make a fucking trash pile like that. Like, that was made for money. Anyway, if you got her actual community involved in this, the schools she went to could donate money. The friends she had could donate money. You know, the fucking pub she went to could donate money. I don't know, I'm making this up. I'm just saying, if you get the community involved, it would be really special. And one thing I also think would be really cool is, I know this is weird, but like, maybe we could use CGI to depict Amy's neighborhood, the places she went, to look exactly as they did when she was in them. And I know that might not always be possible, but like, I think it would be really cool for people who lived in the area that she was in to be like, wow, I remember when that place looked like that, you know. And it's like just a building that used to, you know, CGI a building that used to be there and it's not there. And it's like, it's not that big of a deal. That's a pretty like minimal, you know, tweaking of a shot, right? But like, if it's accurate to the time, isn't that cool? That was like 30 years ago, right? Whenever she was a this, that, or whatever age, being there doing that thing, like, it would look really cool. And I think that this would actually be a movie that I would really want to watch. And, you know, like, I know that whoever the fuck, whatever studio, like, if y'all ever watch this, they're gonna be mad, you know, be like, oh, well, it's like, why do you want to make such a sad movie? Like, okay, well, is the subject matter really happy? Is the subject matter good? I mean, this is the thing about life, though, right? Is that you can't control it. You can't say, oh, I'd like to die 56 years from now on this day with this criteria. You can't do that. No one can do that. We need to depict sad things so that we can learn from them, and we need to depict things more accurately and in more heartfelt ways when they are important. And Amy Winehouse is pretty important to me. Something else you could do in the credits would be showing the aftermath of her death and showing all the public response to that, and also showing, like I said, the people from her neighborhood, the people from where she grew up, like maybe showing their pictures of, like, that happen to have Amy in them, or showing pictures of the neighborhood, the area, like in the 80s, in the 90s, in the aughties, right? Because even if someone, you know, has a messed up, exploited, famous life, it's still a life worth living. And that's what I think we really need to depict.